Good morning and welcome to Morning Moments. I am so glad that you came to join us today. I have another comedian, but not only is he a comedian, he's a club owner of
Mhm.
going out the second comedy club. And it's my privilege from Indiana to bring Steve Rivera. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on the show, man. I'm excited about it.
So why did you not only want to do the comedy and suffer through stand-up comedy, but even suffer by owning your own club? How what was that all about?
Well, you know what? It's a call, man. It really is. What happened with me is that, I went through that whole cycle of 6 years of just struggling through and trucking through and going to bars and going to dives and trying this. And hey, my aunt is, hosting the show in the backyard. You should come do comedy. Like all of those different events. I went through that. And, but I didn't do blue comedy. So it wasn't as popular back then. It just wasn't at all. If I said I was doing clean comedy, I didn't even say I did clean. I just did clean. And there just wasn't that much opportunity at the moment at the time when I pursued comedy stand up. So I was like, well, I might as well just create a room for myself. I mean, or and others that are just like me, because I had a couple of friends that joined me too. Brent Stackhouse over in Illinois was when Gutty's first came together. Was all We were all about trying to get things going. So we would do different events here and there, and we would do sketches here and there too as well. I grew up in the church, so we were always creating sketches. We were always acting in the youth group and stuff like that. So being on stage was, my life. I just knew how to be able to have stage presence. And then, of course, my father was a pastor, and so he would inject comedy in his sermons. Back then, it was hilarious, and everybody's just like, "Oh my gosh!" It was just something that was different, and I wanted to do that. So I just pursued comedy. I was like, "Look, this is who I am. I'm a funny, goofy kid, and I just didn't know the science of it. I didn't know the setup. I didn't know the punchline. I didn't know tags. I didn't know all that. I was just me. I was just like, I'm just gonna be goofy, and I'm gonna be me, and I know about, it just taking on other characters and things like that. So I took that and and I went and I was like, I green as I don't know what. I was just like, I'm going up there, no jokes. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna slay them on, and it was not how it went. It was constant chop of my pride. It was just, you're wrong. See you later. You suck. Bye bye. It's like it was a constant thing. But the crazy thing was when I was with my friends, I was killing. Like I was killing always
Yeah.
friends. I was killing where I was going around because I didn't know. I knew how they. I knew how I spoke. If that even makes sense. Like they knew that my setup and punches weren't really. I didn't know what that was. But when I would go to them, I would say, "Hey, did you see this movie the other day? Oh, I was thinking this, and then I was thinking that." And like it was more of a setup punch action, but I didn't know what that was. I just knew that they're gonna receive me because they love me, and because I have that comfort, now I can be myself. And so I took that and I was like, well, how can I take that on stage with me? Because I didn't know how to do that. How do you take how you're funny? Because I was always told you need to do stand up. You're a comedian. Da da da. You're a constant. You're a class clown. Da da da. And I was like, well, I don't know how to take that and bring it to the stage because there's a lot of work to do, and I didn't have that training. So when I got up, I started watching Sinbad, and I was watching these comedians that just gave me that. I mean, my uncles and my father, and they were always telling jokes and stuff. And I took that and I tried to create that world. And so I took that and went in and I read some books, um, but not too many because really I was just winging it. I didn't know. I didn't have the training. And then after a while, when I finally decided I'm going to go ahead and start doing stand up comedy, was back in 2001, I believe. Um, I told my pastor, I was like, look, I'm not good at anything else. I'm good at making people laugh. So I'm going to pursue this and I'd like to try to pursue it and also create my own little room. And so he was like, you know what? why don't we do this? Take this. There's a small little room in the church, a small tiny room nobody's really using, and make that into your club. Make that into your place where you can come and have, laughter, jokes. And he invested in me. And when he invested in me, that's when I knew, okay, this is what I need to do. And it started from there. It started from a little small room that hold about 25 people, and I did sketch, I did improv, and poetry, things like that. I invited other friends that did it, and we had a small little room, and I put these little tables up, and I put curtains in, and I made it really, really nice. And everybody was like, "Wow, this is transformed into like a club." And I was like, "Yeah, I think that's the idea." So I took that, and I had to do 3 shows because everybody wanted to come see a show. So the nights started tripling up, and people just kept coming and just getting bigger and bigger. And we, I told my pastor, he's like, "Well, you're gonna have to go upstairs to the sanctuary because there's 150 people that are asking to come and do this." So I was like, "Okay, I'll take it upstairs." So I took it upstairs and did like 4 shows up in the sanctuary, and it was a hit. Like Gutty's started coming out. Now it wasn't Gutty's at the time. It was let me see if I can remember. It started as e-comedy live, which is like evangelistic type comedy live, and then it went from e-comedy live to, I wanted to make it more of a business type of club, so like a cafe. And I was with my buddy Brian Johnson, and we were sitting in Wendy's, and I said, I want this name to be, I want it to be like improv. I want it to be like Zanies, because I would go to Zanies too as well to try to do Zanies in Schaumburg to try to do some stand up there too as well. So it was like, okay, I want something like that. And he said, well, what happens when everybody comes to the club and have a good time? So, well, their body hurts, the back of their necks hurt, and their gut hurts. And that's where the gut and always gut busting laughs, Gutties. That's where Gutties. It was so clear. And we were praying too at the time. We were like, I was like, God, I want this to hit, and I want it to be something. So I took my graphic design skills and my artistic skills background, because that was my side job. And Gutty's became Gutty's Comedy Cafe. So I was gonna do like a cafe style because I didn't know at the time what this was gonna be. And then it became Gutty's Comedy Club after I had that final, you know, okay, I woke up at 2 in the morning and had the vision. I was like, this is it. This is what it needs to be.
Now you're in Indiana and you're
Yeah.
just getting ready to open your second club, folks.
Number two.
And that's going to be where?
In Edina, Minnesota.
Minnesota, right?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
So it's going to be in Minnesota.
Yeah.
So here's somebody who went to their pastor and says, I got this call on my life,
Yeah.
and I need to somehow fulfill it. And they gave him a room. And I've heard people say, your gifts will make a way for itself. And if you just follow what you feel God's gifts are to you, and nobody else may understand it, folks.
Right.
But you follow what God has given you and say, I've heard from you, God. God knows your heart. It's up to us to hear his voice. I say that on my show all the time. God knows your heart. It's up to us to hear his voice. Right. God, I heard your voice. You've made me funny. And I could relate to you, brother. Let me tell you, because I'm a preacher's kid that got in trouble in church all the time.
Yes, exactly.
And so the things I got in trouble for, people would come to see me do when I did stand-up comedy for that time. But as we follow God's gifting, he will open doors where you would not believe. Folks, there are many folks that you've heard on my show, many comedians that I've interviewed, they've been to Gutsy's. They have been judges in competitions there, and they have run competitions, and they have been. So if I list a whole bunch of those comedians that you've heard on my show, you go, oh yeah. And then I'm connecting the dots here with this guy who's stepped out on faith and believed this is what God has for him. So here's what I want you to do. We're going to put your your website on down below. We're going to give you the addresses and the websites of both Indiana and Minnesota. And so when you're in those areas or you make a special trip, go and see some of these contests. They have contests. They have championships. There's stuff that they do all the time in Gutsy's, and I'm sure that Gutty's, and I'm sure they're going to do the same thing in Minnesota. When you get a chance to hear them, get a chance to get out and support. Some people say, well, how do I support comedy? This is how you do it. So that there can be a replication of what he's doing in other cities. Because I think that, I was sharing with Steve that when I did stand-up comedy, I would be embarrassed to take my wife to some of the open mics I went to because I was the only clean comedian. And here I am bringing my wife to this place that the foul speaking, F-bomb speaking comedians left and right. And I couldn't invite my church family to hear me, not in these places.
Right.
But we need a safe place, folks. And Gutty's is that type of place.
That's what you're trying to do.
Follow him online.
Yeah.
Follow him where he's, and the comedians that he has on, follow them when they're in your area. And I want, more important than anything else, folks, Steve is going to need lots of the church's prayer for that opening in Minnesota.
100%.
And so I want the Morning Moments audience to start getting together and praying for this, praying that God would move so that there could be a safe environment for clean comedy and safe place for families to come, safe place for people to come where they can feel that they could go and not have to hear all of the crud that's out there with comedy. And so I wanted Steve to come on because I really want him to hear that this is needed out there. And God's got a gift to plan a future for you, brother. And just keep listening to God. Okay.
Thank you. I need to hear that. That's great.
Great.
That's great. Yeah.
I want you to follow up with Steve. I want you to encourage him, find his website, find his email, put the comments underneath because he's going to be reading us comments that he needs this encouragement, and keep praying for him and keep coming back again for some more morning moments, and God richly bless you.